A very good evening to everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on time for our COVID-19 Academy panel discussion. I will take a few minutes here to test the mics of each speaker and the moderator. All the panelists present here, please unmute yourself and say hello.
Hello.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Hello, Michelle. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, Father, thank you. Mr. Rajesh Datta, sir. All right, we'll begin shortly. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, everyone. We welcome you all to another session of the COVID-19 Academy. Sphere India COVID-19 Academy is a collaborative initiative of NIDM, UNICEF, WHO India, World Food Programme, HCL Foundation, and members of Sphere India with an aim to build capacities of frontline volunteers and outreach workers for COVID-19 preparedness and response. Today, we are holding a session on India Floods and Landslides 2020, a discussion on the impact and humanitarian response. Despite July being the driest month in the last 5 years, the early onset of monsoon by the month of May this year resulted in severe floods and landslide situation in various parts of our country, affecting more than 10 million people, especially in the states of Assam and Bihar. Apart from the two states, UP, Gujarat, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Kerala, Maharashtra, West Bengal, Uttarakhand, Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab, Odisha, and Chhattisgarh also faced floods, landslides, and waterlogging at the same time. In the last few years, the number of incidents and scale of floods has sharply increased, and an effective and structured flood management is urgently required to handle this challenge. This year, the impact of COVID-19 pandemic also affects the scale of response in terms of reaching the affected. The objective of this panel discussion is to understand the level of impact, the floods and landslides, the humanitarian response, challenges faced, and way forward. For the session today, we have a very esteemed panel with us. We have with us Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, Executive Director NIDM, Dr. Surya Prakash, NIDM, Mr. Banku Bihari Sarkar, UNICEF, Mr. Mrinal Gohain, ActionAid, IAG Assam, Father Shindo Velliparambil, Miss Society, Mr. Rajesh Datta, ASDMA, Mr. Blessing Samuel, World Vision India, and our moderator for today, Dr. Banu Pratap Mal, PGVS, IAG UP, and Vice Chairperson, Sphere India. I would like to take a few minutes to give you a brief introduction about all of our panelists. I will begin with Major General M.K. Bindal. Major General M.K. Bindal is presently the Executive Director, National Institute of Disaster Management. He was commissioned into the Corps of Army Air Defense in December 1985. He is an alumnus of the National Defense Academy. Major General M.K. Bindal is a graduate of the Defense Services Staff College and has attended the prestigious Higher Command course at the Army War College, besides excelling in all other career courses in the Army. He holds a master's degree in Defense and Strategic Studies, as well as Masters of Philosophy in Defense and Management Studies. During his more than 3 decades of service, he has held important command and staff assignments. Welcome, sir. Next, we have with us Dr. Surya Prakash. He is presently working as Professor and Head Geometeorological Risk Management Division, Administrator NIDM GFDRR, online courses on disaster management, and faculty in charge of 4 specialized centers on early warning and communication, flood monitoring cell, disaster safe fill area development, coastal disaster risk reduction and resilience at National Institute of Disaster Management. Professionally, he is an environmental and engineering earth scientist with specialization in disaster management. Formerly, he was head of knowledge management and communication division and also headed the hydrometeorological risk management division. He has organized more than 250 national and international trainings, as well as conferences related to different aspects of disaster management. He has been a member of the core group, task forces, and working groups for development of guidelines and strategies on disaster management at national level. He is National Coordinator of the International Association for Promoting Geoethics, Italy in India. He is recognized as a professional geologist and is a member of International Consortium on Landslides, Japan. Welcome, sir. Our next panelist is Mr. Banku Bihari Sarkar. Mr. Banku has 20 years of experience in the development sector, of which substantive experience is in humanitarian and disaster risk reduction, including designing, implementation, and scaling up of disaster risk management model. He has responded in many disasters across several states in India and has written several guidelines, manuals, case studies, and articles which have been published in leading journals and magazines. Welcome, sir. Next, we have with us Mr. Rajesh Datta, who is with the Assam State Disaster Management Authority from its inception with more than 15 years of experience and is currently holding the position of Engineering Consultant, Earthquake Risk Mitigation at ASDMA. Mr. Datta holds his BE in Civil Engineering and MSc in Sustainable Development. He has also worked in Andaman and Nicobar Islands during post-tsunami reconstruction and rehabilitation of hospitals and schools, and trained in SPHERE standards. Welcome, sir. We also have with us Mr. Mrinal Gohain, Chairperson, IAG Assam. Mr. Mrinal has been engaged in emergencies since the early 1990s as a former civil servant and a development professional. He has covered in Northeast India complex situations like conflict, bamboo flowering induced floods, food scarcities, floods, earthquakes, etc. He is the founding member of IAG in Assam and also the national lead person in ActionAid and is coordinator for the northeastern states. Mr. Mrinal is also associated with civil society formations across the region, even independent of ActionAid. Welcome, sir. Next, we have with us Father Shinto Velliparambil, Miss Society, Munnar. Father Shinto is a Catholic priest of Diocese of Vijayapuram and is serving as the parish priest of St. Anne's Church, Munnar, and director of Munnar Integral Social Transformation Society and Childline Subcenter, Munnar. Welcome, Father. Our next panelist is Mr. Blessing Samuel, World Vision India. Mr. Blessing Samuel has over 14 years of experience in the non-profit sector. He is currently the head of Emergency Relief, World Vision India. He provides leadership for emergency relief and recovery programs. Welcome, sir. Finally, I would like to welcome our moderator for today, Dr. Bhanu Pratap Mal, Chairperson, IAG UP, Vice Chairperson, SPHERE India. Dr. Bhanu is the founder member, Secretary of Purvanchal Gramin Vikas Sansthan, Chair UP IAG and Vice Chairperson SPHERE India. He has over 30 years of professional career highlighted by progressive advancement and consistent achievement within government and non-government, national and international funded initiatives in the field of community-based disaster management and environmental health and sustainable development. Welcome, sir. With that, we finish the round of introductions of our esteemed panelists, and I would now like to hand this over to Dr. Bhanu. We will wait for a few more minutes for a few of our panelists, and we'll begin shortly. Thank you. Dr. Bano, please go ahead and facilitate this session. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Today, I welcome everybody, especially Major General Bindal, Professor Surya Prakash, Pankuda, Mr. Rajesh Dattaji, Minalji, and all those panelists who are here today in this session. In fact, in today's scenario, the kind of activity Sphere India is doing is, I myself should not say it's commendable, but definitely it's supporting a lot and educating community in a different manner. Now, today, India floods and landslides discussion. It's a kind of key aspect which is in a different way today we are facing, because earlier when we have been facing it, COVID-19 was not there, but today COVID-19 is here, and it's very difficult in this situation managing disaster like we can say never before we have this kind of scenario as we are having today. We got monsoon from July on May onwards. July was dry. July was totally dry today, this year. And we are seeing that number of events are increasing every year. Number of events are increasing. And in this situation, the way we are going to face ahead is going to be very challenging. And our today's understanding that why the kind of disasters we are facing, the kind of response we are providing is, it's whatever needed is being done. This is a question to ourselves, and I think while discussing our today's agenda, we may ask ourselves and respond to this. Well, this way we are doing it, and probably we will be slowly we will be reaching, because we all understand that this is the first time when, in last 15 years, after inception of Disaster Management Act, we are implementing the act for the first time. And that implementation has to be a different way in today's scenario. So let's analyze also in the entire process that what are we doing is really going to bring sustainable differences, sustainable changes in the community, and the development is sustainable, maybe, because the entire aspect, today we have our disaster management plan, national plan 2019. Today we have got all our policies and different policies at the state level also. So how do we link all these things? I think when we discuss, we'll get it. I'll request Major General Bindal to give his keynote address, and then probably that will open the arena of our discussion. Then how should we go about it today, and what kind of futuristic approach we need to bring in today's scenario. So I'll request Major General Bindal to provide his address. Sir.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. First of all, heartiest welcome to all the participants who have joined this program. And congratulations to Sphere India COVID-19 Academy for organizing a webinar on such an important topic in collaboration with an IDM also. And we have been collaborating earlier also on various topics. This is part of the same series. We are all aware that COVID-19 pandemic today uh, has become a part and parcel of our life. Today, that fear which was there when it had come, unpredictability, unknown knowledge, not knowing what is going to happen, has somewhat settled in. Now it is more of taking precautions and ensuring others also take precaution till such time a COVID-19 vaccine comes out, or naturally we adapt to its effects in future and whenever it is possible. So that is the scenario which we are facing today. And uh, we have now moved towards multiple disasters because of the heavy rains. We have floods everywhere. We have landslides at large number of places all across the mountainsides, which has caused large amount of devastation, much more than the COVID-19 as far as the destruction is concerned. So COVID-19 has brought disaster to our homes. It has brought disasters inside our homes, and the other natural disasters are regional and specific in nature, restricted to certain areas, but they are also uh, being tackled along with COVID-19, which is increasing the risk of spread of COVID-19. So it's a very, very challenging situation where uh, it's a catch-22 type of situation as to for the responder and the government authorities, as well as for the affected population, what to follow and what not to follow. Because if we start the humanitarian response in line with what used to happen earlier uh, in its the way it was held earlier, the risk of COVID-19 spreading is very large. Whereas if we cater too much to the protection for COVID-19, then we may uh, land up in a situation where we have not done enough to save the number of lives and property that we should have. So it's a very, very precarious condition which we are facing today. And in this, the humanitarian response becomes a very, very important issue, which is today's part of the agenda. And eminent experts have come. In that, the use of technology has come out to help us in a big way. Use of drones to reach inaccessible areas, find out people who are affected in areas which otherwise takes a number of days to reach because of lack of roads or lack of information. Use of drones, use of social media, crowdsourcing by the social media, and helplines being created on social media, is all of these are helping us reach the affected population at a faster rate than earlier. And this is one of the areas which has come out as a very big morale booster, very as a big uh, uh, field where both for the responder and the affected population, it is a big boon that they remain connected, they remain assured, that assurance is available to them through the media, through the technology. So the role media has played, role the technology has played in such humanitarian response, especially for uh, floods and landslides, is phenomenal. Is phenomenal. And IDM has been conducting number of webinars on role of media under Professor Surya Prakash, who's also part of this panel, wherein it has been said a number of times how media has played an important role, responsible role in this whole setup of the things. And that is what the planners should not forget. that we can take the help of the media, we can take the help of the technology for the good of the people. The second issue which came out loud and clear was the community involvement. Wherever there was a community involvement, matters could be tackled very, very efficiently and could be controlled easily. Example is Orissa, example is Kerala, where the local panchayat level, village level, so much powers had been given to them, so much responsibility had been given to them, so much training had been given to them, that they were able to respond well in time and save a large number of lives even before the responders in the form of SDRF, NDRF, or other forces came in. So the role of the community is very important in this gambit, whether it be a single hazard and especially in a multi-hazard scenario where the resources are depleted, resources are limited, and so it is important that community has to be taken on board for any such policy planning. They have to be part of the participatory process of both planning, execution, and at every stage, whatever we do. And the last mile connectivity, dissemination, wherever the dissemination to the last mile has been proper, has been timely, has been accurate, there we have seen a tremendous uh, amount of reaction from the public for the good of the population. They have evacuated, they moved to safer places, they have taken precautions, they have tied up their stuff if the heavy winds are expected. So they have taken all possible precautions when the timely dissemination of accurate and real-time information was there to the affected population. So these three are the main milestones which we must need to keep in mind at all points of time whenever we are dealing or preparing for a good and effective humanitarian response, and especially in landslide and flood prone areas where especially landslide areas where areas are known but the amount of landslide that will occur, the houses which have already been built or the structures which are already built in the path of the landslide, likely landslides, how they need to be protected and what needs to be done. All these require community participation and strict action by the government and strong legislations which need to be also followed. So with this, I will just finish out here because the large number of speakers are there after me who will be speaking on each of the aspects which I have referred to and many more aspects which in which they have been working for years. So thank you and over to you.
Thank you, General Bindal. Thank you so much for nice and enriching keynote address. Definitely, you have said about the technology we are using is different. What we were using earlier, and media's role is it has brought lots of changes. In this scenario. Now, I think, as you rightly said, that Professor Surya Prakash is a part of all major activities in the country. So I would request him to share his experiences in responding flood, landslides, a multi-hazard scenario in COVID situation. So his enlightened speech will let us understand better way. So, Professor Surya Prakash ji, please enlighten us.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible, but not very clear.
Okay, now?
No, it's okay. It's okay, sir.
Okay, just as our Executive Director, Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal ji has said, these particularly floods and landslides, specifically in the COVID-19 situations, are very different from many other disasters. First of all, they are very much geographically co-located, means they are very close to the river basin areas and the drainage basins. First. Second, they are along the slopes. So landslides are located mostly wherever you have high slopes, which are unstable in nature, right? And which are habited by people. So there are two concerns. One is the flooding and the landslide as a phenomena where overflow and inundation occurs, and second, where the slope masses come down under the influence of the gravity. Second is the elements at risk, where our roads, bridges, our transmission lines, communication lines, sewerage lines, drainage lines, irrigation channels, and the habitats, they come under the threat. So we are trying to consider that in case in the present COVID-19 situation, we have to manage, then we cannot have a physical contacts with each other. We have to maintain the social distancing and also avoid the occurrence of these events in that situation. Or in case it happens, we have to respond quickly, efficiently, and help in efficient recovery system. So all this has to be replanned, because earlier we were focusing mainly on the planning aspects with respect to Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, in which we had targeted 4 priority actions in general conditions, which were not there before the COVID-19. Now, in this particular situation, we have other media to be utilized. One of them is the digital media that we are utilizing now. So through this digital media, we are trying to create awareness among the societies. Society is the key holder. You know, all our works would be successful only and only if all community and social workers and social representatives are part of it. So we have to bring our society into the mainstream and give them the information that how they can protect themselves. So for protection, they need to know to assess those situations which can cause problems or disasters to them. So for that, we are having our reading materials, training modules, and our IC pamphlets through which we are making them aware what kind of conditions will lead to landslide disasters and floods. Most of these people who are living in these areas, they have been experiencing that for long periods of time, because these are annual phenomena, they are recurring phenomena, and people are well aware about it. It's not that people do not possess this knowledge of when and how does this phenomena occur. The issue is their conscious approach towards disaster risk reduction and resilience. So for certain short-term benefits, we are actually invading into those areas which are susceptible to floods and landslides, where recurrence of such phenomena has been reported earlier also and has been experienced by our communities as well. So one, we have to reduce this greed of exploitation of natural resources, which can result into threats of natural disasters. Second, our government mechanisms enforcement is little poor. I'm sorry to state that we have very good guidelines, we have good plans, we have good procedures. However, enforcement is lacking due to 2 major reasons. One is, in the enforcement agencies, we do not have adequately equipped human resource who are skilled and trained in these areas. So they can only judge minutely, but not very intensively about the conditions. So most of the permits or licenses, they are issued in general as per our usual processes. So looking into the vulnerabilities and the susceptibilities, we have to change this process of issuing permits for the buildings or allowing construction activities like the highway construction or the bridge construction or any other construction activities, particularly in flood and landslide prone areas. Second part of it, you have chosen a theme which is very close to each other in terms of its occurrences, that all of you must be aware about the flash flood that happened in Uttarakhand area in June 2013. I had been part of that. Somehow, fortunately or unfortunately, I had dealt with the COVID-19 situation as one of the team members and also dealt with the flood situation and landslides together. So I've seen these things that mostly we are actually not familiar with the phenomena with the ground and the society at the local level. So most of our decisions have been taken from the top level, which sometimes are not acceptable at the grassroots levels. So top-down approach is enough. We have to go from bottom-up approach also. So let's begin with community level planning and risk management. So community-based disaster risk assessment, planning and management may accrue us more benefits in terms of reduction in losses and enhancement in resilience than otherwise. No doubt, we have to have our national disaster management plan, state disaster management plan, district level disaster management plan, and also the roles and responsibilities of local level agencies. However, local level capacity building and leadership is much more important, even more than that, because it's that which will result into actual benefits. So we have to develop our local level leadership in disaster management and local level capacity enhancements for disaster risk reduction and resilience. I have been working with some communities also, and I'd led the approach which was called as people's methodology on disaster risk management. So that is how we have to build upon not only the scientific methodologies, social technologies, but people's methodologies, which can be actually accepted, which can be easily practiced by common people. So we have to actually transfer our all knowledge, whether it is scientific, legal, financial, or social or environmental, into layman's language, which could be understood by them and implemented by them. So I think the target of these programs should be to make people aware, conscious, and prepared with the information, knowledge, experience, and innovations that we have at our end, and then help them build by themselves and become self-reliant. As Atmanirbhar Desh is a slogan that has been given by our Honorable Prime Minister himself, and he has also given a 10-point agenda, including both SFDRR, SDG, as well as climate change conditions. So we have to look into this, and all our existing developments and new developments should consider the parameters of disaster risk reduction and resilience. So any new development, we should not be ignorant or avoid the chaotic and unscientific or unplanned developments around us. So we have to awaken ourselves, so and then try to reduce these hazards. As Swami Vivekananda said, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is achieved. Our goal is our country should be disaster free and resilient, and that will only happen if each and every citizen of this country knows about it. So slowly with the, I would say that this COVID-19 in fact has brought our disaster management into limelight. Because of that act, most of the actions could be possible and guidelines could be issued and control could be managed. So all that now has been well realized by our courts, by our administration, by our society. However, still, information about do's and don'ts is still lacking, and conscious preparedness and actions against these risks is still required. So you can see in the markets, as soon as the opening has been done and unlock has been declared, the people became careless. Some of them actually thought that now there is no fear. That's why this unlock has been started. It's not like that. We have to make a compromise between our economy and disaster situation. So we cannot survive even without economy and environment also. So we have to look into those situations where we are going to make a compromise. Situations. So no doubt, human beings, we have been endowed by the nature. We have been blessed with the nature, with all resources. Nature is never against us. But our own actions actually infuriates our nature and brings down these disasters on us. So there is a Czechoslovakian proverb which says, misfortunes enter when window is left open to them. It's our windows of unscientific developments and our wrong doings that lead to those disasters. So otherwise, we can always live in harmony with the nature, and that will not be destructive and catastrophic in nature. So we have to, these rainfall are natural phenomena, and this is dynamic. I'm basically a geologist. I've read throughout the history of the earth, right from 4.6 billion years ago, when the earth originated and started developing this kind of atmosphere and then the biological environments. So this is continue to happen, and these are variable, and variability is required, change is required. That is the dynamics and the life. So this will not continue. Winds have to blow, water has to flow, but how far, under what conditions, and what severity of magnitudes. So that we have to look into. And these are very much understandable phenomena. We say in disaster management, there are predictable and non-predictable phenomena. Floods and landslides are those hazards which can be understood, which can be predicted, and which can be prevented. Then why we are suffering so far, and why we continue to suffer? So we have to look into, examine into this, what is leading to that and not making controls over us. So those things are human beings, and that we have to look into. And until unless every human being considers his role, no, like I saw, there is a story where there was a big fire and a small sparrow started throwing water on it. And somebody asked this question, that how this small drops of water will help extinguish that big fire. And the sparrow said that I'm doing my job. I'm trying to do what I can do rather than waiting for others to do. So you have to look into your own role as an individual, as a society, as our organization. Then we can expect from others. So most of us expect everything to be done by others or question others, but never examine ourselves, that what are we doing and how are we contributing. So I think if we start introspecting ourselves as individuals, as society, we will be able to do justice, and these disasters will not affect us more. For example, in COVID-19 also, even if there is no vaccine, it is controllable. We can take care and we can stop its spread. But if we care to keep the social distancing, wear the mask, use sanitizers, wash our hands frequently, and take all other necessary precautions, it can never spread and we will be all safe. So the disasters will strike if we become careless, ignorant, or negligent. So this is what I would say, that God tries to awaken us times and again. This is not the first pandemics which has struck on this earth. There have been pandemics before also, and we had the Epidemics Act because of that. But we did not strengthen ourselves against such instances earlier. We should take all proactive, preemptive, and possible preventive actions. Prevention is better than care. So God tries to awaken us. किसी शायर ने कहा है कि जगाना आता है उसे कई तरीकों से, जगाना आता है उसे कई तरीकों से, दरों पर दस्तक देने खुदा नहीं आता, पड़े रहो सहमे हुए यूं ही, पड़े रहो सहमे हुए यूं ही, अगर हवाओं के पर बांधना नहीं आता. So you have to learn to tame disaster rather than getting tamed by them. We need to learn and we need to practice. Learning is not enough. Practice is more important. I can preach more than what I can practice. So it is easy. You can understand, and we can continue with such programs. My humble request to all is try to practice. Doing by learning is much more important than by listening. So this is what I would say. I cannot go into the depth of the subject because it is too much. But broadly, I am having this message that floods and landslides are two such, you can call hydrometeorological hazards or geohazards, which have the highest potential for prevention, for prediction, and loss reduction. And we can do this. It is quite possible. Only thing is our intention should be very clear. Our objects and goals should be very strong. And we should be pursuant and persistent in our actions. So this is my presumption in case of floods and landslides. So these are the words I would say, that because there are other disasters like earthquakes, which are not yet predictable and preventable, where we can always say that we have to be learning about mitigation, learning about do's and don'ts, and reactions and response mechanisms more stronger, or early warning. But in this case, we have the organization's nodal responsibilities and everything known to us. So like the Twin Tower tragedy on 9/11, 11th of September 2001, the Defense Secretary we have known knowns, we have known unknowns. But this Twin tragedy is unknown unknowns. So we didn't know what will likely to happen. So unknown unknowns may happen, and we have to go into this process to make these unknowns into knowns and known knowns. So this is what we can do through this education, training, awareness, sensitization programs, and building this popularity, particularly in vernacular languages. I would say most of our programs are in English or Hindi or some standard languages. So until unless we integrate those systems and media which are connected with the public, where public goes. So until unless you build museums, you build memorials, don't forget, keep them intact so that people don't forget. Short-lived memories are there. So that you have to exercise something to keep them in their memories. Reminders, memorial days, museums, exhibition parks, all you can build with social support. So this is possible. So let's build our society strength to resist disaster, to assess disasters, to respond to disasters, and reduce the risks and become resilient. With these words, I would say thanks, and I would say मंजिलें उन्हीं को मिलती है जो सफर अख्तियार करते हैं, ऐसे मुसाफिर को तैयारो, रास्ते भी इंतजार करते हैं. Let's start our journey and take a step ahead. With that word, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Surya Prakash. I think it was very nice and with wisdom, great wisdom, you could, all your experiences you have said. And I think that reminds me that practice is something which we need to understand. We learn by practice, but this is challenging also at the same time. And that challenge we will have to accept, because only thing I'm afraid now, like agenda for sustainable development, Sendai framework for DRR, all these things, they have been telling since last 4-5 years that we need to be holistic, we need to be more collaborative. But how far we have reached in collaboration, how far we have reached in becoming holistic. And the other important thing is, culture is very important. You have very rightly mentioned that people should be brought into the mainstream, people should be trained, and all material should be provided in local language. But how do you think that this local material is going to bring challenge unless culture is introduced into them? Because the entire society that moves on the basis of its culture, the kind of practice they have been doing. So how that can be integrated into the entire system? Because today what is happening, I mean, with the presence of COVID, though it has got global scope, but very localized action. You very rightly mentioned that it has got very localized action, and that need to be understood well, and that need to be properly dealt with. And no one else can be better speaker for these things, having all experiences, Mr. Banku Bihari Sarkar, who is, I mean, for the last 20-25 years, I am seeing him like a saint. He is practicing he has practiced in UP as well as in Bihar. So maybe he is the best person to tell us about how this year's flood, which was very different from other years, was dealt in Bihar, and then he could bring difference with all his experiences and the kind of need assessment they have introduced this year. So, Pankuda, please enlighten us with your most experienced uh, and understanding to the community.
Thank you, Dr. Manu. And I think we also need to be very mindful that the way the disaster and the climate change scenario is actually evolving across India. And I would like to talk about Bihar. And I would like to share just 3-4 slides to show how this is actually happening. We see in Bihar, there was a tradition when we used to see that the river water used to actually increase slowly, and there used to be big flooding after almost every 4 years. And it was being said that in Bihar, actually, there's flooding normally used to happen maybe up, between 15th August to 30th of September. But in the recent past, from 2016, we are seeing that a new trend where the Bihar is actually facing flash flood kind of situation, and as well as early flooding, which is definitely a new trend which has emerged from 2019. And this is something which is being repeated in also 2020 also, which we are seeing. Like in 2019, we saw there was actually flooding in the second week of July. And it happened because there was excessive rainfall during that week. And almost 1.9 million people were affected. And again in 2019, in the last week of September, there was a huge rain again in Bihar, and again there was a big flooding, and I think Patna urban flooding became a big news. And even this year also, we see there is a early flooding also in the third week of July. These are very rare phenomena which we are seeing, and I think this tells us a different story, that are we really prepared to deal with such a situation. Then a second phenomena which we have seen, lightning strike has increased phenomenally in Bihar. Like this year itself, lightning has killed almost more than 400 people in Bihar. And third phenomena which is evolving, though 2020 has been an exception. In 2019, we saw more than 200 people actually died because of heat stroke. And that also resulted in a sudden actually jump in the AES deaths. Children, more than 200 plus children died because of the AES. And then an ICMR study also said that because of the high temperature and humidity, the AES cases actually has jumped phenomenal. And then when we analyze the data for AES cases for the last 20 years, we could actually also correlate. And one thing you can actually see from this graph, it's an analysis of just a temperature and just a rainfall, and the number of rainy days. So which actually clearly says that if you see the actual rainfall, as actually Bihar is declining since 2008. And this decline actually tells us that the Bihar, which should receive at least 1200 millimeter of rainfall, is now getting around 800 to 1000 millimeter rainfall almost every year, which is really a big reduction. The number of rainy days, which should be on an average, it should be around 70, but you can see the number. This number is really actually I think really declining. And there are only few years, like 2013, when the number of rainy days actually has been quite close to 70. Otherwise, it is ranging between 40 to 50. So this tells us a different story. And this year, if you see the cumulative rainfall which happened in Bihar, you can see that Darbhanga received almost 242% rainfall. So if a district which is supposed to receive 394 millimeter rainfall, if it receives 930 millimeter rainfall, definitely this district is going to be badly affected. And I think 90% of the district was badly affected. Even you can see most of the district actually received more than 200 plus actually rainfall. Overall, we see that Bihar received during this period around 150% more rainfall. Which whereas I think overall, if you see in India, it is being said that July has been the driest year in a decade. But in Bihar, if you see this is a different trend which is actually emerging. So this tells us that the way we have been actually preparing or responding to the disasters, we need to bring a change in our thought process. And there are certain issues which we need to consider while planning for any disaster response, whether it's need assessment, and are we really analyzing these trends across India, across states or not? Unless and until we analyze these trends in across India, we won't be actually really able to do justice with the response. We won't be able to really do justice with the preparedness, because in Bihar, the government actually has been caught napping almost both the year in 2019 as well as in 2020, because July month has never been considered as a year when the Bihar can actually face flooding. Second thing, are we really seeing that this flash flooding scenario, we have seen changes very fast, and unless and until our actually response or the need assessment mechanism or the processes are really aligned with the kind of changes which is happening, like this year we saw that the the interagency group, when it actually started planning for doing a need assessment and send the teams for to the field, then we got a different scenario that the field scenario has already changed. The floodwater has receded and the people have gone back to the villages. It means that even if we do the need assessment at that point of time, the kind of response which we plan based on the need assessment will not suffice the needs of the people, because the needs of the people have also changed. Second thing, one phenomena which we saw because of the pandemic, if we see almost 8.3 million people have been affected because of the flooding in Bihar, out of which 550,000 people have been actually evacuated by NDRF, SDRF. And you would be surprised to know that almost less than 12,000 people have been actually staying in relief camps. It shows that almost majority of the people were not actually really willing to go and stay in the relief camps, which talks about a fear in them of getting infected because of the COVID. So they preferred to stay either on the roads, either on the embankments, either on the railway lines or the tracks, but prefer not to go to the relief camps. Second thing, majority of the people, even 8.3 million people are affected and just 550,000 people are being evacuated, it means that majority of the people were also not reluctant to leave their villages. So this is something which I think this COVID phenomena has really added to the crisis, which we have been actually doing. So I will say that this maybe a sphere can actually think through, and maybe a core group can be formed by Sphere India to look into the kind of situation, the flooding or the I will say the disaster and the climate change scenario in India is actually evolving or changing. And then accordingly we need to actually see what kind of tool that we need to actually use for we call it GRNA or PDNA or whatever it is, as well as the time required for doing this kind of need assessment, which we have been doing traditionally, will really not work in the kind of situation which is actually emerging. So that's all from my side, Dr. Manu. So maybe during question answer, I will try to answer something.
Thank you, Dada. Thank you so much. I think you have brought the best thing, best experiences of how to manage disaster in a multi-hazard scenario. And that is the real need of today, because things are changing so fast. The climate is not being understood by most of us, and things, community's need also is getting changed. So that is very important thing you have brought. Now, what is happening? It is a matter of administrative process, because today, as you rightly said, and Professor Suri Prakash also mentioned, that how our entire approach is changing, and system need to be understood by everybody. Maybe what is behavior of community, that need to be understood by all, and at the same time how community is required to understand, community is required to provide its play its role. That is basic thing, and which is very important. And now we are having as a panelist with us Mr. Rajesh Datta. He is basically an engineer, and he is helping ASDMA, Assam Disaster Management Authority, to function properly during disaster. Now, my understanding is, as I was pointing out earlier also, that DM Act is the first thing and foremost thing which is applied in this COVID scenario. And based on that, we started working, and lockdown and every activity was initiated by system. Now, how the DM Act, and then the act which is their epidemic act, rightly said, Bankuda said that, and Professor Surya Prakash also told about this, that how epidemic act is being understood, because one side is dealt by health team, other aspect is being dealt by disaster management team, or you can say administration. Second thing, I have been talking wherever there was a need, that in this COVID scenario, 95% role is of non-pharmaceutical intervention. And whereas the health issues are a great challenge in any kind of disaster. So how things are being managed, and what kind of new challenges coming up for our future understanding. So I would request Mr. Rajesh Datta Saab, to please enrich us by your knowledge and wisdom in this regard. Rajesh Datta Saab, can anybody help?
Rajesh sir got dropped out of the call.
Okay. So next person, I think Mrinalji is there from the same area. He is chair Assam IAG. So maybe he can provide his wisdom, what has been there, because Assam was another most challenging area where this year, I mean, other than I can say Kerala, Assam is the second, or rather in certain areas, certain aspects, you can say this is the first number place affected by disasters, which is having many more things than in other areas, I mean, like multi-hazard. So there are certain social unrest also is seen over there. So I think keeping all that in mind, how IAG finds that it can be, it is being managed over there. Manalji.
Thank you so much. Anumalji, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak, and thank you to the Sphere team as always. Sometimes it's, if we're looking at Assam, it's difficult to speak about Assam without looking at all the other northeastern states, because essentially there are two large rivers, the Barak or the Surma and the Brahmaputra River, and a lot of flooding happens along these rivers, in the floodplains of these rivers, and a lot of water is brought down every year from the mountains, the eastern Himalayas, as well as the other mountain ranges, the Khasi, the Meghalaya Plateau, as well as the Arakan Yoma. So it's like this U-shaped area of mountains, and the Brahmaputra particularly flowing out towards the west. Now, we have floods in Assam every year. We have floods in almost all the states, including the mountain states. Sometimes people think that because they are mountains, you don't have floods there. But all the mountain states have foothill areas, and as well up in the mountains as well, there are flash floods. There are a lot of landslides, which is also something that we are talking about today. More roads are being made, and every time we have roads being made, I'm not complaining about roads or any kind of infrastructure, but along with that, there's a lot of landslide happening, and a lot of devastation also occurs because of all this. You see, there was, I think, as I said, there were floods every year, but especially the El Nino years, as we can call them, because of the El Nino phenomenon, we have learned to accept that floods every few years will be more severe than in other years. There'll be a lot more rainfall than in normal years. However, climate change is beginning to change it. You see, over the years, in this climate change, as well as I think more localized change, climate change. If you talk even to the farmer in the field or a person in the city as well, they talk about the experiences of how the climate has changed. Assam had a fairly pleasant and cool climate in the past, and especially during the monsoons, you would have days of light rainfall. That is changing now. Now you have short bursts of rainfall, but a lot of rainfall happening at a very short time, which has its own consequences, because it's not good for farming, and it does a lot of topsoil erosion, hugely problematic in that way. So if you're really looking at it, there are landslides, there are flash floods and floods in the expected areas, the floodplains. Over the years, we have built embankments like my preceding speakers have said. We have made embankments, and the quality of the embankments have not necessarily been very good. And one is not even very sure if embankments were really necessary. In many places, they were done out of some kind of compulsion, like putting man in the moon or something like that. So we have embankments, but over time, once you made embankments, we have not taken sufficient care of them. And we have allowed human settlement to occur in very vulnerable areas. It was, I suppose, for governments, for policymakers to create a balance. Do we need to free up land by building embankments to allow people more land to farm in or make human settlements in those places? Or do we create these embankments to stop that flooding from happening in a very serious way? I mean, it was these questions about of balancing it. However, a lot of phenomena have come in. As you said, as the chair had said, we need to take a holistic look into it. And a lot of other phenomena, I think massive deforestation that has occurred in the watershed of the Brahmaputra. Some of the best forests have disappeared. And, forests which would have prevented floods from occurring the way they are occurring right now are no longer there. The entire meteorological phenomenon, the climate has actually changed also because of more localized reasons. There's also been, rock and sand mining, which has happened along these rivers. So all these things have actually compounded into a very difficult phenomenon out here. And as you had also said, in a place where we have had, conflict, we have had a lot of ethnic issues. We have had industrial disasters, the last one happening earlier this year, where there was an oil spill. An oil well had burst, and then there were oil spills all over the place. So it is something quite dramatic, and Assam happens to be at the heart of all these things that are happening almost at the same time together, along with COVID. Many people were saying that this year has been particularly bad in the last 10 years or so. And I would agree to a certain extent. I think this year the floods have been a little more severe. But sometimes what people miss is that they tend to look at government statistics and think that the floods happen in certain districts. It's not necessarily like that. You have the floodplains all along the Brahmaputra, as well as the large tributaries that flow into the Brahmaputra. But there's some places where it can get a lot worse than other places. What triggers them, besides the things that I've mentioned, is that an excessive amount of water release from the dams. We have built a lot of dams in the watershed of the Brahmaputra, which itself is hugely problematic. On some other occasion, I'm sure we will find time to discuss it. Because of embankments that break, this time, for instance, the Siang, the Sangpo as it's known in Tibet, and the Siang as we know it, and it's the mother river of the Brahmaputra, reached to an old embankment, and it literally washed through 130 villages. That was a massive phenomenon. And normally what happens when you have these kind of breaches is that it's not only water dump that's coming in, it's also a lot of sand and other kind of debris. It covers the farmland and it's impossible to farm there for sometimes even 10, even 20 years unless a lot of work is done. It can be sometimes up to 5, even 10 feet of sand in certain locations. So all these things put together, I think, floods are something that we experience in Assam, and I suppose in a matter of 10 minutes, it's impossible. It's impossible to kind of cover that ground and explain what are a whole lot of different things that occur and that cause so much misery year after year after year. People often talk about coping mechanisms. I think with this kind of massive change that has occurred around us, the coping mechanisms as we understood in the past do not work. Very well adapted communities like the missing community in Assam, they are a riparian community. Very well known are the houses that they built on stilts. But all that doesn't work under the changed circumstances. Likewise, more downstream, you have people who live in the sandbars or the chars as they're known out here. All these things are changing. Chars were places where people could build homes. Over time, they would get settled. That's not happening anymore, and they suffer a lot. Though coping mechanisms, as we understood, are failing, and they're failing in a very serious manner. This brings me to the whole subject of what should be the response, right? And take a year like this when the economy has really been very seriously affected. We have thousands, lakhs of migrants who had gone out to our work in other states, coming back to Assam, looking for work in a place where the economy has really been floundering. Primarily, the farm economies have really been floundering. There have been historical addressed, and which still haven't been addressed. There's a lot of uncertainty of livelihoods, especially in those places affected by floods. Besides the homes and the properties that have been washed, how do people get back to farming? Farming is a big release. It's both a psychological as well as an economic release. That's not happening. A simple thing like I was talking to a set of farmers, and they were desperately looking around for rice seedlings. But there was no rice seedlings around available, nothing in their own district, and they were looking in the neighboring districts. They were willing to borrow money and get into debt to buy those seedlings, but those seedlings were just not available. It was an extremely sensitive matter as well, because it's something cultural, it's traditional, it's psychological, so many things put together, People forget that part, that is also something deeply cultural. So this was the kind of, the whole indignity of it, not having work, being compelled to go out as migrants, struggling to kind of restore your livelihood, not being able to get the kind of support that we are supposed to get from the system, the government. I think there needs to be a lot more dialogue happening. I think there's, Dr. Surya Prakash had also mentioned about that need of decentralization, decentralizing resources, decentralizing planning, looking at new structures, a paradigmatic shift, as I say. I mean, we need to make that huge shift where it's not a set of specialists necessarily. I don't deny the value of specialists. Specialists are necessary to find solutions, but that there has to be that dialogue. That has to be that conversation between the people who are affected and the specialists to find all these more local solutions. We need to reorganize logistics. The same system has been following, whether it's NGOs or whether it's the government. What we do during a big flood, we take our sacks of rice and pulses and some cooking oil, and we try to reach people. Some hand pumps are dug up to provide so-called safe drinking water. Very often they are too shallow to really provide very good quality, safe drinking water. It's a routine. We need to get out of that routine of how we are responding. Those 4 or 5 different compartments of work have got to be dismantled. We have got to find a new way of responding to floods. And when people talk about DRR, I say that let us understand the entire phenomenon of why floods occur and how our interventions in the past have contributed to making floods much worse. Every time we make a road, no one thinks that a road is actually disrupting drainage patterns in a drainage patterns of rivers and of a certain area. You know, the whole hydrology is being affected. But every time we make a highway, or for that matter, an embankment, for that matter, a dam, we have to think about all these things. Likewise, when we're planning certain interventions, it could be agriculture related or related to livestock. We have to keep in account what are the actual requirements, what are the real requirements of the ground. And that means a lot of conversation. In fact, I see that even in the past, there was some conversation. You know, I've been living in this area since my childhood. I've been meeting people all over the place. And I go to a place near an embankment which is recently breached, and I talk to the people who had lived there. And they would often say that in the past, the flood control department used to involve us in a lot of activities. We were responsible. There were certain caveats on us. We can't go and tie our cows and our cattle on the embankments. Cars were not allowed to go on the embankments. And every year we had our contribution to settlement in those areas was taking care, ensuring that there were no rat holes being built, that, you know, people, that minor repairs are carried out. So the embankments were a lot more sturdy. There was a lot more participation of communities. Perhaps it was a little coercive participation, but nevertheless, that participation was there. So that conversation, that participation, the thinking together of things need to be really thought through. I suppose in these 10 or 15 minutes, we cannot do it. I suppose in better times to come, you know, we will be able to have these roundtables where we are thinking through every step that requires to be thought through. But, you know, just to kind of conclude it, I would say that we need to reorganize logistics, understanding what people really need, that sometimes even more than, you know, a hand pump, or sometimes the other things that we talk about, and thinking that, you know, it could be really seedlings which are more necessary for farmers. Maybe it's a boat that they require. Fisher folk might be requiring something else. So really understand logistics. There is a need to put finances in the right places. When you talk to the departmental people, they'll always talk about finances. But it's always the district administration's, you know, small funds which go towards relief. But how about the other departments, right? Everyone, I know it's there in the plans and budgets of the departments, but it's got to be mobilized and put in place and thought through in a much deeper way. We also need to look at the decentralization and the participation of communities. And finally, not least, understanding how infrastructures are being built. You know, I'm talking about physical infrastructures, roads, dams, embankments, railways, railway tracks. But also other than that, I'm talking about forests, I'm talking about wetlands. All these things really need a proper understanding and integration into our planning processes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrinal Saab. I think very nicely you have explained what kind of challenges are being faced, what kind of multi-hazard scenario is over there in Assam. And it's not just Assam, but it's entire Northeast. You can say Assam is the entry point, probably you could say. And the way things are being taken care, the way community is trying to understand, and the system, I think it's very much reminding me the good development and the bad development kind of thing. So how a good development can help and reduce disaster risk, and how a bad development can add to the disaster risk. So that is very important to be understood. I think time is less. So is Mr. Rajesh is there available today now?
Yes.
Rajesh ji.
Yes, I am here.
Thank you, Rajesh Saab. Actually, I was asking that how Disaster Management Act, Epidemic Act, and the existing system is being seen by Assam Disaster Management Authority, because authority is something apex body for this in as a nodal agency. But at the same time, challenges are there because the system health department is taking care of epidemic and the disaster component of it being seen by, so that complexity, how did you find and how could you handle this? I think that may help people and all listeners to understand better way. So Mr. Rajesh, please, and anything you feel like from your wisdom. So
Thank you.
over to Mr. Rajesh.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yeah, very clear.
Yeah. Good evening to all the panelists and it's other speakers. I heard it's Mr. Muguhai also. He pointed out all the issues of Assam flood, and it's really painful for us to face each and every year the flood. And you can imagine in this year till date we are reeling under the third wave of floods. Two flood waves of flood have been already over. So it's a recurring process. You can say it's a seasonal disaster, and
Mr. Rajesh is disconnected, I think. Is it so? Or I am disconnected? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. Dr. Rajesh got dropped out again.
Got dropped out. Okay. Let's see for 30 seconds and otherwise we can call for the Shinto. I think maybe some problem could be there because earlier also he had some problem. So is Father Shinto there available? Father Shinto, are you there?
Yes, sir. He's
Okay. Father Shinto, I think you have done commendable job in Kerala, and basically the rains and the landslide, this was all being faced by your team and you have been very active in the entire process. So we need to really understand from your experiences how you could see in new situation people versus the disaster and the disaster of different nature, and at the same time the system which may be probably responding to need in a different manner. I could say in a different manner because I know Kerala was a district, is a district which has taken care of COVID-19 in such a different way that globally it was being acknowledged, your efforts were being acknowledged. So how difficult you could find or how challenging you could find, which can help us in learning and understanding better way. So Father Shinto, please.
Sir, good evening to all. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you are very loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. I'm from Kerala, especially from Idukki district. Kerala is going a challenging situation from 18 onwards, 2018, 19. This 2020 is a tremendous, painful experience for Kerala, especially for us. I am from Munnar. Now I would like to speak about the Pettimudi landslide disaster. Pettimudi is 25 kilometers away from Munnar, and it is a tea plantation area under KDHB company, means Tata. And Petimudi is the name of the place where the landslide occurred on August 6th night at 10:45 p.m. I have 5 questions, so I would like to answer those questions especially to save the time. In Petimudi disaster, 85 people were affected and 70 people were killed. 12 people were escaped from the disaster. Among the 70 people, 66 were found out, and four were four persons are yet to be found. So the first question is, how can we relate to the affected people and their socio-economic background? As you know, the affected people are tea plantation laborers of KDHP company. They're living in a single line unit. That means there will be one big room and kitchen and a bathroom. So in that room, they have to sleep, they have to keep all the furnitures, everything. So naturally, there is a problem of privacy. The couples face the privacy of sex. The individual face the matter of problem of privacy, because the you might have seen the pictures. The, that accommodation facility is called the lines. Lines means 5 to 10 small houses is joined together, and together they are called lines. So if I speak from my home, that others can simply hear my words from the next home. So the question of privacy is there. Anyway, the people are living there. Uh, the problem is that if there is a bedridden patient or old age parents, etc., it may create some more problems. Here we face mainly hospital facility. That is chief problem for the laborers and Munnar together. Tata has hospital here, but it has not that too much facility. Uh, the 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 patients or those who were escaped from the landslide, 3 of them were admitted in Kolanjeri hospital, that is near Cochin. Why? Because Munnar does not have enough hospital facility. So it's a pathetic condition, to be say frankly. Then regarding their economic facility or economic condition, I think they get better salary than Assam, but here the living expense is higher than. Uh, I am now skipping into second question. How does their social vulnerability accelerate the risk? Petimudi is an isolated area, so the network is very weak. Communication was uh, not done in a because the people could not communicate about the danger. The landslide happened on August 6th at 10:45 p.m. night, and the outsiders came to know about the disaster only on the next day morning after 7 o'clock. We heard that some people who were affected by the landslide died even on the early morning 5 a.m. Hello.
Yeah, Father.
Yeah.
Now you are audible.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
You got disconnected, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. If it was not line unit, the number of casualty will be decreased. And the people have ignorance about the disaster management.
Father, keep it
That is another
short, please.
problem.
Keep it short, please. Yeah. Keep
Sure,
it short
sure, sure,
also
sir, sure,
because
sir.
time is very little.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they have lack of tools and emergency equipments. That is their social vulnerability. Then third question, how can we reduce the risk? Uh, this area is prone to landslide. Uh, Heavy rain is the main reason for the landslide. So if we keep rain measuring units in those areas, we can measure the heavy rain and we can give the early warning. Thus, we can save lives. And the second point is that education of disaster management to the people may help to overcome those pathetic situation or danger situation. And third one, formation of disaster management task force in the local level may help in the uh, rescue level. And the fourth point, the landslide prone area is to be identified and people should have proper knowledge about it. Thus, they can save their life. Then the fourth question, the the challenges that are going to be faced by the people. The disaster may lead them to the trauma experience. There's one boy who does not want to see the, the tea leaves, and another one is there who does not want to hear the name of the place, Petimudi. So that means they need a special and continuous psychosocial support. 31 persons were died from a single family. So you can guess what will be the tragedy it might have created. And education of the orphaned children is in a dilemma. There is a 6-month-old baby is there. Uh, those are the challenges. And the final another thing, the financial aid offered by the government is creating another problem because uh, now the witnesses or the affected people uh, face a, a challenge from their relatives. It is uh, that is another problem, I think. And the last point, whether our support is holistic. We are a small NGO, so we can't provide everything, but the companies there and others are they provide and help the people in a physical level. So we tried to contribute to give a psychosocial support from the very beginning. We could care people, we could console them, and now we are continuing that program. And we try to get some funding agencies to continue the process also. So here I conclude my words, and if there is any question, I will try to answer. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Father Sinto. I think very nicely you have explained. Now I would request, without losing time, Mr. Blesson to talk about his experiences and the kind of response he has provided, the relief mechanism, and how the environment friendly thing uh, could be delivered to people, could be people could get what they wanted, they could understand better way, what innovative things they have done, improved way they have responded in relief, all that I think in a short time. Time is very short, lessons up. So please be brief.
Mr. Blesson, you.
Mr. Blesson, are you there?
Can you hear me, please?
Yeah. Now, great.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I'm aware that we have overshot the time and would want to thank all the panel speakers for laying and speaking on the topic. Without wasting any further time, I just wanted to reflect some of my thoughts on how we responded to the situation. We all know that COVID has been, a big challenge, and it has been also, quite challenging to respond to multiple disasters along with COVID. It was heat wave, cyclone, flood, and so on. And the common thing between flood and COVID has been that it disproportionately affects certain demographic groups. And the second common thing is, as in a way that was reflected by our previous speakers as well, is we yet to develop a vaccine for COVID-19, and hopefully we would be able to develop a vaccine. Yet flood, a well-known threat, has been happening for centuries. People continue to suffer every year. People are among the most common, flood is among the most common and most destructive natural hazards, and we have very good evidence of that. And panel speakers also spoke about, how we've been focusing on, hazard-based solutions, flood control policies that builds upon control policies that where we have embankments and dikes to control and manage the floods. And we've also over a period of time has evolved in our response as a nation towards flood management and reducing risks. World Vision as well have over last 5 months have reached out to 5.9 million people directly through COVID response. We've been supporting people through awareness and prevention, strengthening medical facilities and food security interventions. And simultaneously, we've been also responding to flood situation in Bihar, various districts in Bihar and Assam. And it's been like for various other organizations, we've also done several firsts. We've kind of scaled up our cash and voucher assistance, which is an appropriate modality to help people in need, where we provide so that we also maintain the social distancing and maintain the COVID protocols. We were able to leverage technology as much as possible to sensitize communities, and we also did refresher and sensitizing community task forces on COVID protocols, and in a way we involved various stakeholders to reach the most vulnerable communities through leveraging technology. Now, there's been also a big tension. I'm sure every civil society, including government, would have come across this tension of scale and scarcity that COVID-19 has universally affected, and then the subsequent disaster that has become a double whammy for the communities. Now, we've done relief, and we will continue to do relief every year. Right. So, and I've been thinking as a disaster management practitioner in India and responding to these situations. The question that we often and we should be asking ourselves, in line with the global frameworks that we have, the Sendai and others, we should be aiming for resilient recovery. the question that one should ask, why people need such relief interventions every year? Why are they so exposed to hazard in the first place? Often relief measures and quick relief, be it cash or voucher, or be it in kind distribution of food materials, as reflected by one of our earlier speakers. They tackle underlying causes? Are they symptomatic? Are just relief measures being very symptomatic interventions? And how do we ensure that we go into these underlying causes of vulnerability, right? And these communities across Bihar, across not Bihar particularly, in Assam, they're very limited resources to recover. And due to this increasing frequency of disasters, and now with the climate change thing, the frequency of losses of these communities have increased manifold, and these floods are not going to stop, and it's going to be, as we all know, that it's going to increase in intensity and frequency. However, the hope is the silver lining is the 15th Finance Commission that has used, the disaster risk management for the first time in its report. The critical thing is the recommended allocating resources for recovery post disasters, right? So, disasters response in India so far has been highly focused on emergency relief and rescue, which also left a major gap in recovery or rebuilding initiatives, especially empowering these communities so that they are able to face flood next year resiliently, right? Especially so, it's an important and opportune time that the government and civil society is able to empower people to build, and they're able to make people resilient to facing these disasters. And some of these huge losses which people face every year due to flood and other disasters, it also results in the development deficit of the disaster affected areas for long time. And I I pray that the 15th Finance Commission in its report was able to address this deficit conceptually. And I sincerely hope that the flood affected communities in India this year could witness the beginning of the implementation of this rebuilding and recovery, and that focus on recovery initiatives where people people are able to build back resiliently, with that resilient recovery, they are able to face flood or future floods in more resiliently. And I hope.
Listen, sir, we have overshooted time,
Yeah.
so we
So
can take
just
5 minutes for question answer also.
Yeah, just one. I'll just conclude by
Please,
saying
please,
that
sir. Please.
we also need there is a big need to build local capacity, including policymakers to take evidence-based decision for flood recovery. So the response that we do should not be based on hazard or disaster driven alone. There is a growing need for reorient, our policy making through the lens of integrated flood risk management. Thank you. Over to you, Banuji.
Great, great. Very nicely you have explained uh, lessons up very nicely, and I think it was quite enriching for us. Now I think we have overshooted time, but we can take 5 minutes for discussion on the entire scenario, as well as any questions if it is there. Very particular question, one sentence question with a specific person can be asked. So please, anybody would like to. Any question? I'm trying to see chat box also. Uh, Anybody would like to please unmute your mic and then let us know if any question is there. Okay, I have got one question. I mean, I would take the opportunity and I would like to ask. Actually, there was some document I was reading, and that mentions, which was quite worrisome for me also, that was mentioning that how the poor development, this has opened the argument that many agencies who have been supporting in the development have not done rightly, or bad development is a cause for disaster kind of thing. So how far these things are affecting system as well as the society? Maybe Professor Surya Prakash would be a better person to respond to it. That is it is still happening in the government system, in the non-government system, as well as corporate system, or what is his experience, please, if possible? Professor Surya Prakash, are you there, sir? No. Okay, any other question? Any other question by anybody? Any other issue?
Yes, sir. There's a question in the chat box.
Okay.
How will early warning systems apply in river basin by riparian communities? Kumar. And also by Ramesh Sudan. What CBOs would like to undertake or should take post-COVID? What about
Okay. To whom the question is?
Any of the panelists can to take up the question, sir.
Okay. This is how will apply EWS, early warning system, in river basin by riparian communities. That is one question. Otherwise,
what role CBOs would like to undertake or should take post-COVID?
okay, okay. Any person is interested in responding? I think as far as early warning system is concerned, I would like to introduce this aspect because we have been doing this kind of initiative between India and Nepal in the Himalayan rivers, which are coming in UP, Bihar. So how community-based early warning system, how community-based transboundary upper reach and lower reach, or you can say upstream and downstream community. So how this community-based early warning system can be seen or can be developed, that is very important to understand. And I think this is a key to manage riverine flood. Key to manage riverine flood, because unless community understands the early warning system, why it should be from community to community, because community understands better what they are doing, what they are facing. If something is there in upstream, the downstream can be told by mobile, by any other system which is available over there, and then lower stream community can prepare better way. So upstream and downstream community both can exchange, and this can go along the river from beginning of the river to the end of the river. It's in the river basin area. So just only thing is you have to monitor your river in your village. You have to monitor your river in the village. You have to understand that where from you need to take the lead time. Lead time is maybe somewhere in Nepal, somewhere in Uttarakhand, or any place where you can have the real time water level. So if you can get the real time water level from any level, from there you can manage to your community, and that's how it can be taken care. I mean, today we may not be able to discuss it at length, but any time my number is there with Sphere India, my mail IDs are there, so anybody can write to Sphere India and I'll be available. So we can talk about it. But it's very important. Yeah. Mr. Alexander asked that policies, technology, laws, SOP, but not reducing risk from disaster. See, I think this is something which is always there, but it needs to be applied, you know. The technology is there, the laws are there, SOPs are there, but unless it is applied, how can it be? And very rightly, Professor Surya Prakash, he has explained, even Major General Bindal also, he has explained that how the system which is available there need to be understood by people. Unless you understand things, you may not be able to do bring changes, bring community together, and they can get the benefit of it. So most important thing is you need to benefit by take the benefit by applying entire process, entire thing, entire system, activating them, you becoming a catalyst agent for them, and then or change agent, somebody says. So that's how you can do it. So DRR, or disaster risk reduction, is very important, and from that point of view need to be understood, not the from just response point of view, because response automatically happens. If any problem is there, response will happen. But is it going to be a developmental response? Is it going to be a response which is need based, or it is something what we had and given? So all those things need to be understood, and I believe this is matter of not just debate but to practice, and that's where our role is. That's where our role is, and that same thing is where India is doing. Any other? I think Father Shinto has written a note also. I think that is there, and Sphere India may take it to a level. Yeah. Need to build the disaster prone communities and increase their resilience. Of course, I think it's very important. Yeah. So if there is no further question, and I think today's we have already overshooted the time, so we'll close it today. And in case of need, you can write mail and messages, WhatsApp messages to Spare India, and they may organize. I mean, next time also very soon on these issues, and maybe it's better. But definitely, as Bankuda was telling, we need to understand and involve community and make groups and task forces and take lead. So at the end of it, I think Sphere India can take lead into the process, what he was referring to, and we can go ahead further. Thank you very much, everybody, and we will close it today for now.
Yes, just a few administrative announcements before we close the session for today.
Please.
Thank you, Banu, for the incredible and effective moderation of the session. We would like to thank each and every panelist and all the participants for such an enriching discussion. Before we end the session, I would like to mention a few details. Your certificates will be ready in 24 hours. Visit our website www.sphereindiacovid19academy.org and you can download your certificate by scrolling down and finding the name for today's session. It will be ready to download in 24 hours. However, if you are unable to do that, as some participants have faced technical difficulties, do not worry, you can email us at covid19academy@sphereindia.org.in and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Have a great evening and see you all for our next session. Thank you, Dr. Banu.
Thank you. Thank you.